Welcome to not the very last one, but almost the last live of the year. And we have some things to talk about. So let's just dive right in because I want to get to the questions. I see there's lots of them today. So first we're going to take a look at what happened this morning before we even got on today. And you can see spot silver above $70 an ounce and spot gold, pretty darn close to $4,500 an ounce. Now, as we know, let's take a look at the charts because, I can't even read that actually. Gold and silver hit all-time highs as geopolitical tensions rise. And yes, that is definitely part of what's pushing this now. But do not forget the shift that started last January, where it is typically the paper markets, all those contracts that have been driving prices. And now we're going into the physical markets. So while there's a lot of things happening geopolitically, and by the way, you are not going to want to miss the interview that I did with Javier. It'll go out on Saturday. He's Venezuelan. And he was just there 2 weeks ago. He's got a bird's eye view. Probably one of the best interviews that I've personally ever done. So much material there. You're going to want to watch it more than once, I'm sure. But when we're looking at what's happening in the news and with oil, and I don't know, are we headed to World War III? Are we already in World War III? But that would certainly be one reason for the push into I think, physical gold and silver, because the reality is, and the guys at the top know this very well, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So what we're looking at here, because I pulled them from last night, is this is the spot silver market. And of course, it went up even more this morning. That's from yesterday. And then this is the spot gold market. And spot gold has had a pretty darn good rally. But keep in mind those 200-day moving averages. So if we get a little pullback, remember how I told you, and you can really see it twice in this chart? Let's see. Does this have like a laser? Does that work on that? Does it work on that? No, it doesn't work on that. Okay. But remember I told you 10% away from that 200-day moving average. And I don't care what you're looking at. It can be stocks, it can be cryptos, it can be spot gold or spot silver. It doesn't matter. 10% away from that red line, which is the 200-day moving average, is considered a lot. Well, I can't really read it from here, but we're about probably 30% away from that 200-day moving average. So it can stay up there. And what you're looking at here on the chart is a consolidation where it just stays inside of a range, giving that 200-day moving average a chance to catch up to it. So we can get a little bit of a pullback, and it can just stay in a range. It can stay over, it's not overvalued fundamentally. Technically, it can be overvalued, like pretty much everything is right now in the markets because they want to keep you in there. But, I know I'm going to get asked about a correction, and we could certainly see that, and it wouldn't bother me even one little bit, because what you're really looking at here are paper contracts. That's what you're looking at. Easy to buy, easy to sell, cheap. They can control a lot of gold and a lot of silver. But it's in the physical markets, things don't move that quickly. And that's where I have my wealth, is in the physical markets. So there's something weird came up on this screen. Here, I'm sorry. Let me just get rid of that. I don't know how that happened. Go away. Okay. You see the box that's in the middle? Okay, just what in the world just happened? I see my charts. Sorry about that. It's what happens when you're live. Can you just X out of that whole? Okay. Can you just click? Can you just click on that box so I can move on with this? Yeah, that one. And then you have to put it into the PowerPoint so it shows up. Ho, 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 you guys. There we go. No. Okay, it's not working. Well, what I had put together, and we can just go into a couple of other things, aside from just keeping you up to date where the spot markets are. So I may have to do this next week, but I did pull, we had some questions on the British pound. So I did pull the British pound up against the dollar, against spot silver, and against spot gold. I did it on a shorter term and a longer term basis. I also want to look at what was happening in Zimbabwe. But since the computer is not cooperating, I'll just jump to this too, because I think this is interesting, and then I'll take questions. The new middle class, this is from this morning's New York Times. The new middle class, nothing seems affordable. House, children, all feel out of reach as pessimism sets in. Well, this pessimism is about confidence, isn't it? And you see what we've got is an evolution. Is that working now? Okay. We're going to go back to this, but it is, let me just finish this thought and then we'll go back to this. They can't really afford, meaning politicians and central bankers cannot really afford this pessimism, because this is where revolution comes from. And we need a revolution in this world, not just this country. In this world, we need a revolution. We don't need a war that we see breaking out all around the world, but a revolution to bring sound money back into the system again so that we cannot be abused. And with that, it's kind of a good segue into these charts on the British pound. So this is the British pound against the US dollar. Okay, so it's actually 1 year chart is down almost 6%. Here's the spot silver chart. Okay, we can see how well that's done. I don't know. The dollar's supposed to be so strong. It isn't. Or this would be indicating that the British pound is stronger than the dollar. It's not. This is more of an indication of the truth of purchasing power. So in terms of spot silver, 1 year up over almost 114%, and probably as of today above 114%. And then this is spot gold, 1 year. And again, both spot silver and spot gold severely outperform currency to currency. They use that in a relative basis only. But when you're hearing them say we have a strong dollar, or the British pound is stronger against the dollar, this is what they're referring to. It doesn't really mean very much unless you are traveling and you have to use another currency. So you might have a bit of an advantage. But the reality is that what the spot silver and gold charts show you is that the British pound is losing purchasing power, just like every other fiat currency is. You can also see in these the outperformance of spot silver to spot gold. And so now a lot of people are probably going to say, oh, well, then I just want silver because of blah. Go back to its functionality. We've talked many times, and I've shown you this before, that before we get to that visible hyperinflation, that silver to gold ratio, right? The price of spot silver to the price of spot gold. It's been at nosebleed levels, like 110 times or something ridiculous like that. And remember what the original ratio was: a 1/20 of an ounce of gold, what I have in my fingers, to 1 ounce of silver, right? So 110 to 1 is a far cry away from that 20 to 1. So my expectation is to see, because this is what history shows me, is that ratio will narrow. And then as we enter the hyperinflationary phase, I believe it will grow again, because again, That's what history shows me. I'm also going to give you a bit of a longer view on this because this is, again, the US dollar to the British pound, but now this is going out 10 years. And you can see in the 10 years, the dollar is not even 12% stronger than the British pound. It's so irrelevant, but this is what we hear all the time. So understanding when they say that, what that actually means, empowers you to understand what they're saying. Here is the spot silver chart over 10 years, up 421%. And here's the spot gold chart. Now, what's interesting to me, because that's up 349.53%. This is all over a 10-year period. Typically, you don't, and I do this all the time, you guys know that. You typically don't see spot silver outperforming, but that's the level that it's outperformed in this last year. So this is a repetition of history. It's a good thing, but it shows you the truth, or closer to the truth anyway, of what's happening with the fiat money and why we are probably hearing all over the place that it is the devaluation trade, and that now even Wall Street is saying every currency is falling against gold and silver. But paper will not help you. You got to have the physical. So that answers the question that I had on the British pound, because it doesn't matter relative to the purchasing power, which is what we're looking at here. And you can see that gray bar that you see in the middle is 2020, that itty bitty teeny weeny recession, into this massive K-shaped economy that is getting even more K-shaped, which means that those that are at the top are doing better and better and better because of the inflation, and those at the bottom are doing worse and worse and worse. And when you look at these different charts and you see the dollar against whatever currency you want, what you don't see is what I'm showing you here, the purchasing power. But that's what the spot charts are telling you. And even though the talking heads in Wall Street are talking about gold and silver a whole lot more here, they never put the term spot in front of it, which they should, because that's a contract. This is not a contract. This is the real thing. But this is what matters to you and me, not how many dollars we have. We're here. I'll just use this one. This is $1 million bolivar that I can, or a million bolivars actually, that I can buy nothing with. It doesn't matter how many zeros there are on the end. What matters is what you can convert it into. They don't want you to look at that, but you experience it every time you go to the grocery store, you have to pay a bill. You're experiencing that. And then what this is, I wanted to do a little update on Zimbabwe gold, right? So this is the ZiG, Zimbabwe gold, against the US dollar. And you can see that recent reset that happened in October of 2024. You can also see how it kind of looks like it's leveling out, but not really. This is spot silver to the ZiG, or the ZWIG, and this is spot gold. So again, really interesting because of what's happening in the spot silver market. And I can't go out 10 years because it hasn't existed for 10 years. This just goes back to April of 2024 when they brought out this 6th iteration of a new currency. And again, don't miss that interview on Saturday. It was phenomenal. We didn't put the audio in here where he's talking about spot gold, but you can see the NASDAQ that's coming in, erasing December losses, except what really matters is the purchasing power and what you can convert that into. That is what really matters. And also, I thought this was an interesting headline. I haven't had a chance to pull up the article yet, but I will. JP Morgan is exploring crypto trading for institutional clients. Pet rock, no longer. There is this massive rush by the institutions and the governments and even the central banks, because the central banks are now exploring it. They will be shoving this crap down our throats. Can you see how important it is to get redeemable gold, sound money back in the system again? Do you really want them to have you have no privacy anyway. I don't care what you're doing. You're on camera constantly, no matter where you are, even in your own homes with smart TVs and cell phones and all of this. Do you really want them to be able to play you like a puppet? Because that's what they do now. How much worse will it be when they know 100% of everything that you do and can push a button and say, nope, can't do that, must do this? I don't want them to have that level of control. Do you? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. And if your answer is yes, then rock and roll hoochie coo and just keep playing into the fiat money markets. But if your answer is no, make sure you have your sound money strategy fully in place and executed. And don't worry about what's happening so much in the spot markets. Any bullion's going to be impacted on the short term, and this is just raw. This kind of stuff will be impacted by that. But the better data coins, as impacted as they will be, are not as impacted by it. What it does is the more that the spot market goes up, it gets more eyes. So we can go off of that now because I'm done with thank you. It gets more eyes, and when things get more eyes, which is how they get compliance and adoption, all right, so more people are looking at buying gold and silver, and that's okay as long as they come here to get the education to understand why they really need gold and silver. And they're not just treating it, and you're just not treating it like a trade, because gold and silver is not a trade for me. It is my insurance. It is the foundation of my legacy, because this is sound money that cannot be inflated away by governments and central banks. And while they can control those contracts, so that's pretty handy for them, in the physical world, in the physical only world, which is what the collectibles are, that they can't control because it's purely supply and demand. And I'll even tell you something else that I find quite interesting. People that I've spoken to years and years ago that said, oh, just bullion, oh, the collectibles, oh, no, blah, 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 blah. Guess what they're talking about now? Isn't that interesting? They're talking about the collectibles more and more. I'm not going to use the names on air, but if you go back and look at some of the work that some of these people have done, they poo-pooed it, and now they're embracing it. Why are they embracing it? And does that mean that they understand it? No, they do not. This is where I have lived my life. I understand how these markets move, and I understand the opportunities. So with that, I'm going to start with the questions because it's a favorite part of what I do anyway. And Golden and Coons asks, when the real estate market crashes, what do you think it will look like? What do you think will be the catalyst for the U.S. real estate crash? Well, it's always a supply and demand market, and I think that when this market crashes, it will be very noticeable. If you can think back to what happened after 2008, when there is a market meltdown, the real estate market contracted about 40%-ish, something like that. And then because the Federal Reserve had targeted real estate as one of those things for reflation, then what they did was they dropped those interest rates all the way down so more people can borrow and have the ability to borrow and buy real estate to push those prices up. So what I think it'll look like is, what it'll look like is I think we'll see an implosion, and it's already begun, and it's already begun on a global basis. There are going to be opportunities, but because there will be a lot more real estate that comes onto the market. And in terms of gold and silver, I am working on a piece that will make this a bit more clear, and I certainly have done that. Maybe we can pull the link and put it in there on what happens to real estate during hyperinflation. But what you're looking at is the ability to buy a lot of real estate for virtually not a lot of gold, right? Globally on average, although it's actually much better than this, but if you look at the Weimar Republic, 25 ounces of gold, and that's thanks to my friend Robert Kiyosaki, and that wrote the book, 25 ounces of gold bought an entire city block, buildings and all. Now, interestingly enough, and we talked about this in the interview that you'll get to see on Saturday from somebody that lived through what happened to real estate in Venezuela, he was traumatized by it. So he is a permanent renter. But frankly, if you've spent nothing on it, and listen to this interview because it makes perfect sense why he feels this way. It's not movable, right? And even the governments refer to real estate as immovable property, and the ability to tax you and the ability to take it away. So it matters that you can always pay those taxes, and it also matters what you paid for it to begin with, right? So if you execute the strategy and you go into real estate and it costs you absolutely nothing, that certainly wouldn't be the entire portfolio that you have, but it'll make a level of sense. And that's part of the exit strategy, though it doesn't have to just be real estate. And I am working on that piece. So you will have all the different parts of the strategy and what the options could be to convert into when that time is right to do it, because it'll be different times as well. So I am working on that. I'm not going to have it next week, but that is already in my line of sight that I am working on. So what do I think the catalyst for the U.S. is real estate crash? Well, number one, it's already begun. It's the affordability issue is a big part of the problem, and the higher interest rates are also part of the problem. And if you take a look at the decline, the 40-year decline in interest rates, you will see that the price of real estate crosses, right? There's direct correlation between them. And so when the real estate market crashes, since that's such a large part of the global economy, not just the economy in the U.S., interest rates will be dumped. And what do you think the 50-year mortgage is about? It's about keeping that real estate market inflated, but the crash has already started. And the next crisis, kind of like what we had in 2008, could be the final catalyst to really see those prices go down in a very dramatic way. But that's also what creates opportunities, but there's a timing of it, right? I always talk about that cup formation. That's what we're going to wait for. We're going to wait for that cup formation, and that's an indication that big money has recognized the undervalued circumstance and begun to go in. That will be after the reset. I'm telling you right now that there isn't anything that's going to move me. I'm sorry, because I don't like to make such blanket statements, but it's just true. There isn't anything that's going to move me to go into any other assets until we have that overnight revaluation and that reset. That still lies in our future, but not in the too distant future, I don't think. And I wonder if the catalyst for the U.S. real estate market crash will be war. Could be. Civil unrest, it could be. Inflation, certainly. And disease outbreaks, famine, starvation, unemployment, stock market crash, Bitcoin crash, ta-dam, any and all of the above. So you kind of answered your question. But when all the air comes out of the real estate market eventually, where is all that air going to go? It's going to debt, right? all of that air is going to go into eating up this debt, because in the new system, if we don't do something about it and get sound money back in there, what's going to justify money creation in the new system? Well, they've now told us. I used to wonder. I don't wonder anymore. Now we know. It'll be debt, so they have to get rid of this unpayable debt. They cannot put gold in the system or waste their little revaluation on a little bit of debt now. It won't work. But the revaluation will happen when they really do need to attempt to get your confidence back. And one time is not likely to do it. It's just likely to begin that mode toward getting rid of all of this mountain of debt. Because governments typically do not change behavior unless we force them to. And we have to force them to by demanding our power back. And all you have to do that is buy gold and silver. Enough people buy gold and silver as we come together in community, we can demand it. So where's all that air go? It goes to pay off the debt. And since if you're sitting with gold and silver, you've maintained your purchasing power. And that's another piece that is coming out shortly, but I'm not exactly sure when. I just did a piece on, because of something else that somebody asked me about, the movement in the country on property taxes and abolishing property taxes. So I did a deep dive on that, and that will be coming out shortly. And it was good that you asked that question. I don't really remember who asked it, but it was good that you asked that question because it gave me an opportunity to show you how gold makes sure that you can always pay your property taxes. And frankly, silver too. The difference between the two for me is the quantity that I have to deal with this versus the quantity that I have to deal with this. You can just carry an awful lot more wealth in a small package with gold than you can with silver. But they both maintain your purchasing power. So, that's the way that you treat it. But yeah, that's where it's going. And Lacey Davis, 4770, asks, will you explain the dips in the dollar from 1913 today, ups and downs? Thanks. Is it the dips in the dollar? Because what you would be asking me for that would be one currency, the dollar, against another currency or against a basket of currencies. And when confidence in the dollar goes down, then the other currencies will get stronger versus the dollar. And in reality, it was a July, don't hold me exactly to this date, but I'm pretty sure I've got the date in my head. July 9th of 2007, when the U.S. dollar fell to all-time lows against a trade-weighted basket of currencies. That, to me, when I saw that, honestly, it freaked me out. I was talking about it at the time, and what you heard come out of my mouth was, something nasty this way comes. And what happened? Well, it was already unfolding, but at roughly a year later, the crisis, the great financial crisis, became apparent to everybody. Doesn't mean that it wasn't unfolding before that, because these things don't really happen that fast. It's just that you don't see it until it's too late. And that's the whole point of being prepared, right? That's why you want to establish not just your sound money strategy. Every portfolio should always have a foundation of sound money. But you also need to have food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation. That community piece is critical, and shelter. And the community piece, I started talking about, it's been in the mantra the whole time, but I started talking about it in September of 2023, because it hit me that that's really what we need to do, is come together and bring your gifts. Maybe you can't afford gold and silver, but you have a huge skill set. Do I want to lay irrigation in a garden? No, I don't want to do that. Could I do it? Yes, I have that experience, so that's great. But I've got the gold and the silver. Do you know how to lay irrigation and plant gardens and build houses and do electricity and, repairs and all sorts of things that need to happen inside of a community? That's the point of a community. We are stronger together with whatever gifts we have. You bring them and you form that community. And people ask me about that, so I will let you know. I talked to Morgan, who has been building communities for a very long time, and tasked her with doing a piece on how do you start that. So I don't know exactly when we'll have that, but that's in the mix as well. And, I didn't bring it in here. But what's very lovely this time of year, because, with all my neighbors around here, they all know that they can come and pick a pomegranate, they can pick some herbs, they can pick a zucchini, whatever. And so very often now I find on my porch, especially now that it's the holiday time, a little box of chocolates or a bottle of or something to thank me for letting them come and get food from the garden. I appreciate that very much. It's the way I am working on building community here, is making sure that people know that I am happy to share what I have. And we decorate quite heavily, so the neighbors walking through the yards with their kids, I watch them on, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I watch them on my Ring camera, every night. It starts at sundown, and the kids are so happy, and that makes me feel really good, because the children are our future. And we need to, it's our job to make sure that their future is secure. That is our job. And we can't do it unless we get sound money back in the system. But the dips in the dollar are relative, right? When you look at the purchasing power chart, other than the kickoff, it pretty much just goes one way, and that's down. That's by design. Not okay with me. Not okay. That's theft. Not okay with me. And Pafors 13411 asks, what are your thoughts on the Italian government demanding disclosure of privately held gold at home, along with the government's taxing it 16 or 26% if sold after their deadline? Wow, I just did a piece on that. I'm not sure. That's coming out fairly soon, I believe, because really, I love this debate that's going on. Who owns government gold, right? It's pitched as if the public owns the gold. But the Italian government is making an attempt, just like the Indian government has been for many years, trying to ferret out all of that gold that's held at home that is out of their clutches, right? So yeah, what I think is this is a property grab. It is a way for them to know where it is and, I don't know, potentially confiscate it. I think it's despicable. I think it's disgusting. I think that the truth is coming out that you and I need to understand to be your own central banker. It is really why I like this stuff, because it is in a different category. And I know more and more governments, they want us to tokenize it. That's the whole point of this surveillance economy, is to pull as much wealth in and makes it easier to transfer. And yes, they're trying to give you incentives to, declare it now. We'll give you a new cost basis on it so that your tax basis is less. But taxes are, I know you need money to run the government, but it's not like, do they really spend the money the way you think they should? Do you think that money really gets earmarked for the public's benefit? No, we have to push back on it. So whether you're in Italy or you're in the US or you're in Turkey or wherever you are in this world, that's why we need to get that sound money, redeemable gold back in the system, or they'll keep doing this kind of stuff. And eventually you will have nothing. I don't think you're going to be happy if they control all of the wealth. So that makes everything a whole lot more urgent. If we get sound money back in the global monetary system, well, they can't really do this again so easily. I know right now what they want. There's a huge push. Yeah. The banks want all of this tokenized because then they can use your equity for their benefit and create more leverage. The governments, they want to tax it. They want to know who has it and where it is and where it goes, et cetera, et cetera. They want to know everything. If we allow it, because we're already mostly there, they've been building the infrastructure for the full surveillance economy. It isn't just happening with the currency. Walk down the street and God knows how many times your picture is taken. Even sitting in your own home watching TV or on the computer or with your smartphone. They have been taking away and building that infrastructure for a full surveillance economy for many, many years. Do you remember Snowden? Do you remember that whole piece? That was all about surveillance, and people were all up in arms. It doesn't come out anymore, but has it gone away? No. What they're showing you is that surveillance piece has been in for a very long time. How do you battle that? You come together in community and you say no, because if this you can take out of the system and create restrictions around what governments can do, you have the power back. We better do this, people. I'm telling you, it's never been more urgent. We're going into a new year. It's never been more urgent. I can't tell you exactly when the shift is going to happen, but would you be surprised to see a major crisis in 2026? Because I wouldn't be. Whether it's a banking crisis, whether it's the start of World War III, whether it's markets imploding or the crypto markets, whatever it is. A meltdown or a melt up, which is really what I've been saying that we're in, because that's what happens before the crash. We have got to take our power back. You're not going to do it if you do nothing. And why would you give them that power? So this is really, really important. And that's what I think about the Italian government. But you're going to hear a whole lot more about it very shortly, because we recorded that last week, right? I'm pretty sure that was last week. So that'll be coming out soon. And I go into that a lot more. So thank you for that question. And thank you, because I really appreciate it. You help me focus, because I do definitely take notes and then look at my notes so that I then will take a look at whatever it is that you're talking about. And I appreciate your help, because I can't see everything. And that was a great one. Chris Willis, 7359, says, thank you for still being here to answer questions. It's December 24th in Australia. Not many people would be so dedicated, Lynette. Gratitude. It is my pleasure, Chris, and I'm planning on doing it next week. And even when I come back to Australia, the time is going to be wonky because I can't get up in the middle of the night to do it. But I'm still going to be doing it when I travel. That's how important this is to me. That's how important you are to me, because you are who I work for. It's that simple. You are who we all work for. So it is my pleasure and my honor to do it, and my gift to all of you, because you being here is your gift to me. So it's my pleasure. And Miramore asks, Lynette, hi. Can you estimate how much of the increase in gold and silver is reduction of value of the dollar, and how much is lessening of the cartel controls, LBMA, COMEX, and influence of China and India? I would say that I would honestly say that it's more about the lessening of the cartel controls, the LBMA and the COMEX, because of the shift from the paper markets dictating prices to the physical markets. You know, and we've been talking about that since last January. I wonder if there's a way for me to see that. I don't know. Can you pull that? And I'm going to run some charts and see if I can overlay some stuff and see this even more. So that's a great question. And that's my opinion. But let's see if I can look at that a little bit more, because what I find is when you look at things, and that's really what I try and do for you guys, when you look at things just a little differently from this angle or that angle, it's amazing what you see. So great question, and that I think would be an interesting video. So I will put that in my hopper, and let's see if we can't figure that out. But as a whole, I think that it's the result of the shift to the physical markets that started last January. And Cool Brother G5401 asks, hi Lynette, can you elaborate on why you feel that gold does not need yield? Sure, it's really simple. Because it is not a contract or debt, it is the most risk-free thing that you can do. And yield is supposed to be a reflection of the risk that you are taking. And since, according to the Bank for International Settlements, what do they say? Gold is the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk. Therefore, you don't have to be paid because you're not taking that risk. And it truly is that simple. And Calvin Owen 5946 asks, what is the steps to expect when we start to shift away from fiat currencies and toward an asset-backed new currencies? Well, first of all, we got to demand it, right? How do you demand it? Well, you demand it with your pocketbook. You're not going to demand it by voting, just going to the polls and voting, but this is your vote, right? The more people that load up on physical gold and physical silver all around the world, well, guess what? That's the vote. That's what we have to do. And we don't need 100% of the people to do that. Because what are we guided by now? We're guided by the top 1% that have rigged this entire system to shift their way. We need to wrest that power back. How do you do it? By taking it out of their ability to inflate away and control. You cannot do that in the paper markets. You can only do that in the physical markets. And so that can protect the individual. But coming together in community amplifies our voice. So the global sound money movement is a great place to be. That's why I sit on the advisory board. That's why I travel around the world and talk to people about this, because this has to be a global movement. That is, what is the steps to expect when we start to shift? You know, once we get enough demand, well, now we can start to take our power back by refusing to use this garbage. It is so critically important that they get adoption of this crap and what I'm showing you, because it looks an awful lot like this, but this is the physical rendition of this happens to be XRP, right? They want you to think that it's gold. It's not. And you know, I mean, I get the drawbacks and I get the challenges and I get the fact that the younger generation have grown up with all of this technology. But I hope that you get the fact that if you use it and buy into it, they have you. if you say no, and I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, everybody's got to do what they're comfortable doing. It's just that I know, and I saw it, and I've been saying this since 2009. This is a Trojan horse to get you into the surveillance economy. It's a Trojan horse. And so, you might think, well, what an idiot you are, Lynette. You've been watching Bitcoin since it's $7 a coin. Why didn't you just buy whatever, right? Because I can't support their lie and live with myself. That's my form of ethics. I'm not saying that I would think anything less of you if you were doing both or whatever it is that you want to do. I want you to have the right to do it. But when I get a question like that, what are the steps to expect when we start to shift away from fiat currencies? What is this? This is another fiat. And guess what? It's controlled by corporations just like these are. Federal Reserve notes. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation. A note is a debt instrument. What are those stable coins backed by? They're backed by, ta-dam, dollars. So how stable are they? Or is it that just your perception? And you always have to be careful of when things are named a certain way, because the reality is more than likely just the opposite of what they're talking about. But who issues stable coins? Well, anybody can issue stable coins, mostly private corporations. So do you really think that Amazon dictating to you is going to be any better than the Federal Reserve dictating to you? I don't think so. And with AI, were you showing me? Somebody was showing me this morning some AI videos that you could not tell at all that they were AI. And AI is designed, and it's eating up your data. They know everything about you. They know, AI knows your habits, what you look for, what you like, what you think, and then they know how to tweak it to get you to go in the direction that they want you to. Now, this is a program that's been in place forever by the governments because that's what they want you to do. They want you to think it's your idea that you stay in fiat or you go into fiat money or like some people that have lost businesses and they blame themselves. They're not looking at the system that was designed to transition that wealth and destroy the middle class. You have to be smarter than that. It's another reason why you want physical gold and silver in your possession. And you also need to have critical thinking, the ability to think for yourself. I tell you all the time, I can't really tell you what to do. You have to do what you are comfortable with, regardless of what I or anybody else says. That's your job, to be fiscally responsible. But the system, perception management, that's what it's called, was formalized, even though it's been around forever. It was formalized by President Reagan in the early 80s, and Reagan and Rupert Murdoch. Thank you very much. Now they have even more control. Again, I ask you to ask yourself, is that okay with you? And however you answer that, that's how you have to move forward. If it is, rock and roll hoochie coo. That's your vote to do this. But this is my vote. Real, tangible, in my hand. I don't have to understand a formula. I just have to understand how money works. And this is not rocket science. It's really simple. Demanded everywhere. Demanded one place. Demanded one place. When demand goes away, and look what's happening. Governments, corporations, banks, central banks, they're all adopting this, right? They're pushing adoption on us while we are in, some would call it a crypto bear market. They got ahead of themselves, but they're pushing adoption. We better act fast. If you don't have your sound money strategy in place, do it. And even if, I'm not saying crypto's going away, so I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying, but we can put gold, redeemable gold, in the new monetary system, even if it's crypto, even if it's smart contracts, even if it's a CBDC, even if we can still have redeemable gold in there. We can still take our power back. That's what we got to do. We're going into a new year, and everything that's happening, the new middle class, nothing seems affordable. Buy flippin' design. And this is why I say to you, one of the reasons that I say to you that we are at the end of this currency's life cycle. It's older than me, right? I'm at the end of my life cycle. I mean, I do think I have another 29 years, but I'm still at the last third, right? I'm at the end of my life cycle. You're not going to think I'm my almost 11-year-old granddaughter, right? You just have to understand what it looks like. And, yep, that's it. And Chris Willis, 7359, asks, what is your take on the difference between the Shanghai and the U.S. spot difference in silver? Well, the Shanghai exchange is really still more geared as a physical market versus the U.S. spot, which in theory and in reality, those contracts, and this is what happened in last January, those contracts can be executed because it sets the spot price within a given period of time. But mostly in the U.S., you just trade one contract for another contract, and that's how they make their money. The Shanghai Gold Exchange is different than that. I mean, you can still do that there, but it's also more toward the physical where you can do withdrawals, etc. And it's also taking the power, some of the power and some of the status away from the U.S. markets, which frankly is what needs to happen and is happening. So I would say that the main difference in the Shanghai to the U.S. markets is that the Shanghai markets are more physical oriented and the U.S. markets are more contract based. So I would say if I had to choose between the two, give me the physical markets. And Clive Thompson said something has broken and the supply for physical is drying up. Well, I'll take a look at that, but that is not what I'm seeing. The supply for physical is heating up. It's not drying up. But I'll see why he said that. And sometimes they say something and maybe it's not understood exactly what they said or something like that. But could you make sure that that goes on? Okay. And I'll take a look at it. I would say that he's wrong. That's definitely not what I'm seeing. And when I do that, I'll also, because you know I'm a database decision maker, maybe he's right. We'll take a look at some supply and demand dynamics in there. And Deb Warner 2978 asks, is there a section in the exit strategy that addresses gold and silver pricing after revaluation and before fundamental value falls, and how long do the prices stay at the fundamental highs? So the answer is yes, absolutely. It depends on which part of the strategy we are executing. And while I cannot guarantee when they do that first overnight revaluation and spot gold begins to go to its fundamental value, it won't happen the first time, probably. But when it begins to go to that, usually on average, it hangs out there about 9 months. So part of the exit strategy would, in that first overnight revaluation, would be about paying off fixed rate debt. And it has to be coordinated for a number of reasons. Obviously, we don't want to hurt the price going out. And so we can't do it all at once. This is why it's really important to stay in touch with your strategy specialist, because we are set up that it'll all be dialed in. It'll be very dialed in as to how we're executing that. So the answer is yes, that is part of the exit strategy. Now, I can't tell you how many overnight revaluations there will ultimately be. We'll find out. But globally, on average, there's about 3. And this time, what's kind of different this time is I think that this is the first time where we will see a global overnight revaluation. So we'll have to see what that looks like, because that's never happened before. We have been in a global depression in 33, between 29 and in the early 30s, that even though we didn't have the technology that we have now, that was a global depression. Today, with the level of interconnectedness that we're in, whether it's the financial system or any other system, it's going to spread a lot more quickly and more than likely be a whole lot more severe, because this is a global issue. That's also why we have to get the gold into the global system again, not just one place. Excuse me. So let's see. So generally, and this was something that we talked about in the interview that you're going to listen to on Saturday, because this is somebody that's lived through the revaluation in Venezuela. But as soon as after that 9-month, when gold and silver will also reset to a lower level, then it immediately starts climbing back up again. Because typically governments don't change behavior, they just change the accounting of that behavior. And so they have to work through and get rid of all of that unpayable debt pile before they can go into a final system. And you know how you're going to know when we're at the last reset? When gold is part of it. And it has to be redeemable. That's why I watch what's happening with Zimbabwe so much. It has to be redeemable. Otherwise, Zimbabwe was able to do a 44% overnight revaluation after all the other revaluations that they've done. 6 months-ish? Not even. Came out in April, and they did their first 44% revaluation in October. Right? Ain't backed by it, but it was never in physical form. You couldn't have bills. You couldn't get the gold. That's why it has to be redeemable, because otherwise, how do you prove it? Chris Willis, 7359. Is there legislation in place for silver confiscation in addition to gold? Well, yeah, because the same Trading with the Enemy Act and a whole bunch of different acts that are still legal. And actually, I am working on a large piece. I'm not sure when I'm getting the feedback from the strategy specialist. Do you know when that feedback was scheduled to come in? But I am working on a very large piece on all of that. So if you can, and actually I even did something, I think, with the laws that are in place. Yeah, there are a whole bunch of laws that are in place. Eminent domain is one of them, to be honest with you. Governments can do any darn thing they want. In this country, some say the eminent domain laws will protect you, but who's going to regulate the prices, right? So it's really garbage. That's why I am not a bullion buyer. I am a collectible coin buyer for that very reason. Because I do think that when all else fails, desperate governments, like what's happening in Italy, desperate governments do desperate things. So you want to be in a position where those that are at the top that have either the ability to write the laws or the ability to influence those that write the laws, isn't that really where you want your wealth to be? Because when they write those laws, do they write them for your benefit or for their benefit? We'll see. And Linking Atlas asks, what do you think about the real estate investment in Dubai, the UAE? Well, it's clearly a very up-and-coming place. I have not really looked at that real estate market. I can go ahead, if you make a note of that, I'll go ahead and take a look at it. But you might also recall that in 2008, that there was a lot of Rolls Royces and real estate and all sorts of things that were abandoned in Dubai particularly. Now, they may be more entrenched these days, but this is going to be a global issue, and nobody's going to be exempt from this. And Dubai itself doesn't have the resources, the natural resources that, say, a Saudi Arabia has. But I will take a look at the real estate market. But frankly, this is true all over the world. This is a global real estate issue that the prices have been pushed up to nosebleed levels, and it's turning over now. It's not doing it in lockstep necessarily, so maybe that's not happening in Dubai. I'll take a look at that. But what I can tell you is into the future, wherever that happens to be right now, into the future, there will be bargains. So if you hold your purchasing power intact, you will have the ability to take advantage of those bargains. And that is part of the strategy. And Ernest DeBella asks, I see 1 and 5 gram gold bars that are attached to 18 karat gold chains at not bad prices. Were there previously, and do you think we would see limits on gold jewelry possession after a confiscation buyback? See, isn't that beautiful? You know, you see me wear jewelry all the time, and that's a big part of the reason why I do. Because even during the Depression, when they confiscated the monetary gold, and let's see, can you hold gold jewelry in an IRA? No, you cannot. So that's why I do like gold jewelry. Obviously, it typically has a larger markup. Now, I will give you a little sneak peek because we are working on some things, and we're not going to put that level of markup in there because that's not the point of it. So stay tuned. Very soon, hopefully, we will be able to start announcing some wonderful things. But yeah, the prices are not bad. I mean, I don't mind buying gold jewelry. I don't mind buying gold, right? I don't mind buying silver either. And in any form, monetary at its base, any form at all. Plus usable. This is kind of cute. I should probably keep this for when I have a party. But anyway, Ernst DeBella says, my photographer's eye, excuse me, is drawn to the art on the wall behind you. Can you share some info about the art? Yeah, actually, those are, I think they're Vanity Fairs. Yeah, they're Vanity Fair covers from like that one's 1870. That one is 1869, so from the late 1800s. And I particularly like the two that are directly behind me because they're showing sovereigns, and so they're showing statesmen. But they're, you know, I mean, they're great pieces. I love them. That's why I have them there. But they're just covers from Vanity Fair. And they have character. And here, I don't know if I move, oops, I think I have to move this way. Yeah, and I'll move this down so you can see. That is a queen absconding with the realm's money. So yeah, I like those two. Thank you. And Optimistic Beekeeper asks, thanks for those charts, Lynette. Can't get this kind of education anywhere else in such an understandable way. Thank you. That I have been working on this for so long and will continue to try and do it better and better and better. Because, years ago, I said to myself, okay, how can I explain this in a way that people understand that? And then I think I got reasonably good at that. But I realized that you can get it here, but you have to get it here. And until you get it here, you don't take action. So then the next question was, how can I explain this in a way that people can understand it, but also take it to heart so that it's integrated? And so for you to say that to me means the world to me, because that is my goal, and that's what I've been working on for so many years. And I'll keep working on it because you can always get better and better and better. It's one good thing that Shearson gave me that I've used the rest of my life. What did you do right to get as far as you got? What can you do righter to get even further? So that's my commitment to you, and that's always my commitment to you. And and every weekend when I sit down to work on this stuff and put all this together, that's really what's in my head, is like, okay, how can I do this better? How can I be more clear on this? And hopefully you've seen me evolve over the years. But I'm not done. I will keep trying to get better and better at it. So thank you very much. And I Heart Jews, Zang is conflating crypto, Bitcoin, and CBDCs. She knows better. What does that tell you? I just know monetary life cycles. That's all. The universe put me in the places where I had that exposure and went, okay. So I'm very blessed, and I'm blessed that you're here. And Dr. Doom 196 asks, if my plan was to use metals to buy real estate within the next 3 to 5 years, should I focus primarily on gold or put a nice percentage into silver too? You gotta have both. So I would say you call us up and you have that conversation about the real estate, because there are several things that we need to do here. We have to, number one, is we have to be able to sustain our standard of living, right? Food, water, and remember, I put medicine in with food because that is the biggest drug that you can ever put in your body, is good quality food so you can think clearly and really function the best possible way. So food, water, energy, security, barterability, which is primarily silver, but not only silver, wealth preservation, which is gold, community, which is what we really need to be working on now, as well as shelter. These are all of the things that we need to lead a reasonable standard of living. So when we're looking at that first part, it even includes some of this stinky cash that's going to zero in terms of purchasing power, because that's most recognized. So there's part of that barterable portfolio is that liquidity piece. That's also, which would be some level of cash, some level of gold, maybe some level of gold backs if you choose, I don't know where they are. But anyway, some level of gold backs. Oh, here it is, right? Maybe even some level of digital gold, like in the form of glint or kinesis, right? So that's your instant liquidity piece. Then once you're through that, and we can determine how much of that do you need, right? All of this we can determine how much of that do you need. Then after that comes your barterable silver and this raw barterable gold, right? Then after that, we're looking at, well, what fiat money wealth have you managed to accumulate? What do we need to do to protect that, so that if that goes away for any reason, you're made whole? And then you also want to look at your fixed rate debt. And we want to be able to deal with that first overnight revaluation. And then beyond that, right? So those are all easy things to define. This is how much you need to accomplish this goal, 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 right? And it's all laid out so you can see it. And you get to tweak it, right? You do whatever you want. Personally, my barterable portfolio has been established for 10 years. You might feel 5 years, you might feel 15 years, but you get that piece established, and then that's when you look at the opportunity positioning and you go into more like that, because you're going to have to sustain your standard of living, or you're going to have to use, if you don't put the right tool in for the job, then you might be forced to use the other tools that you've put in. Like, I'm not taking this to the grocery store, but I would take this to the grocery store. You see what I'm saying? So it's good that that's your focus. That's a big focus of mine as well. But you also want to make sure that you can maintain your standard of living and protect what you've managed to accumulate, right? That's that first part. That's after that is when you go into the rest of it. So call us, have that conversation. Ultimately, the choice of whatever you do is strictly up to you. And even if it's absolutely different than what we think it should be, you're the one that's going to reap the benefits or suffer the consequences of any of your choices. So it ultimately has to be your choice, regardless of what anybody says, right? But the reality is I can hold a lot more wealth in this than I can in this even, right? So, and certainly than I can in that. So for converting into income producing real estate or real estate down the road, yes, gold is a better tool for the job. And that's why I say it's the right tool for the job. So we need to know first what the job is. That's why you put your goals first. What are we trying to accomplish? Then we can look at everything. And by the way, keep in mind that what you will be doing is using up your barterable portfolio. You're going to be using this up. So the strategy is designed as a full circle to recoup any taxes. We talked about taxes earlier. To recoup any taxes, any fees, any penalties, anything, right? So that by the time we get to the other side of this mess, you are in a significantly better place than you were even as we entered it. That's the goal. You know, I mean, I can't guarantee anything other than I'll show up and do the work, and you have to understand that I am thinking and I am presuming that thousands of years of history and lots of currencies that no longer exist, that we're getting a repetition of history. So then it's easy. Then it's easy because I know what these different stages look like. And PPC Works asks, I'm not looking to buy real estate as I plan to relocate. I have bought silver and I am thinking about selling silver at 100 to 110 and buying gold in 2026. Please advise and time period. Well, what you're talking about is ratio trading, and you can certainly do that. And because again, you have to do whatever is to your level of comfort. But before I would make that choice, I would have a conversation and see, because silver is your barterable tool. So you may have accumulated so much silver, and a lot of people have, right? They just have massive amounts of silver, which is bulky and unwieldy. In that case, ratio trading into gold makes a lot of sense. So, but I can't give you just a blanket answer on that, because if you get rid of all your silver and then you have to go to the grocery store to buy some strawberries, are you really gonna want to, oops, see, that didn't even want you to do that. Are you really gonna want to use this? So before you'd make that decision, I would really encourage you to make an educated choice by calling and talking to us. Let's see what you have. That might make every sense in the world. And if your question is, do I think that we'll see $100, $110 silver in 2026? I think it's certainly a very strong probability. Can't guarantee it because those are, after all, the spot markets. But what all of the move in the spot markets is really telling us is that the paper markets are losing control. Because why isn't silver down at, God, I started buying at $4.38. I think that's what I paid for my first silver dollar, something like that. And with spot gold, why isn't spot? It was like, I think 400 and change when I first came into the industry in 2002. Why isn't it still like that? Because they can create an unlimited amount of contracts. Because things are shifting strongly as we move into this next iteration of money. Sound money cannot be controlled or inflated away. Important. So call us. And Dr. Doom 196 asks, if my plan was to use metals to buy real estate, oh, wait, we already did that one. Didn't we do that one? Okay. Dr. Doom 19, I'll read the whole thing because I think we did part of it and not the other part. That's why I asked that question. If my plan was to use metals to buy real estate within the next 3 to 5 years, should I focus primarily on gold or put a nice percentage in silver too? You need both. So the silver is based, and we have a list like, okay, what's best for gold, what's best for silver, just like the property taxes. You can pay them with the silver, but gold is probably a better tool for that, which you'll see in the piece that I just did. So again, I'm going to say call us. Let's talk about the gold. Let's talk about what your current cost of living is, and then we can tell you what you should focus on, where you might have holes, where you're in good shape, whatever. And 2023 Red asks, why are platinum and palladium rising so fast and so much? Well, because they are still precious metals. Now, they are not monetary metals, but they are precious metals. And so when people are concerned about what's happening in the economy, they're looking to a flight to safety. And it's just like copper. Copper is, I think, also making all-time highs. But it's really all about the devaluation in the currencies. Why are things really going up? Because people are realizing that devaluation trade that they keep talking about is what I just showed you. It's the loss of purchasing power, which is why, quite honestly, this $10 trillion Zimbabwe note means absolutely nothing. And so when people are concerned about the value of their currencies, they will convert those currencies into anything that they feel that will hold their value better. So why are those things rising? Because the currencies are falling. So it's the same reason why gold and silver is rising. The difference is that gold is the primary currency metal, silver is the secondary currency metal. So that's where I personally focus, because there is zero doubt in my mind, but that this is a currency life cycle issue. So therefore, I focus on the currency metals. But why is the stock market making new highs, right? And I think, I can't remember what country it was. Was it the Netherlands? I don't know. I was reading this morning that some countries' real estate, and I want to say it's the Netherlands, but don't hold me to that because I really don't remember, was up another 17%. Right? It's already unaffordable. So, but why? Because the value of this stuff is being inflated away. That's why. And Teaspoon 9602, hi Lynette, what will happen to U.S. Treasuries when the dollar goes poo-poo? Well, interest rates will go through the roof because nobody will want to buy the treasuries. And that's actually already happening. There's already been a shift. This is not something that's new. This is something that started back in 2008. Shocking. So, yeah, they will attempt to get people back in it by raising the interest rates to attract that money. But actually, it's modern money theory. And by the way, remember, I've said this so many times that at some point the Fed will pivot and start buying treasuries again, and that's exactly what has happened, right? They just announced it last week. I took a look at it. You can see a nice upward move. It's not straight up yet because they don't want it to be that visible, but the Federal Reserve has started monetizing U.S. debt again by buying treasuries. So modern money theory, where it doesn't really matter, they just print us into oblivion and print away the rest of whatever confidence and value is held in there. And the real Mike Petty asks or says, I only have ounces of gold. Should I buy smaller coins? I hate premiums. For the barterable gold, yeah, you want a variety of sizes. And this is really the importance, and I don't care what, again, asset you're looking at, you will see this because I really have already dug into it. And that'll probably be like one of my gifts to you in the beginning of the year, the fundamental value. But that's why it is so important for you to understand the true fundamental value of every asset, every single one. Why? Because that is the only way that you would know for sure whether or not something is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. Therefore, do I want to buy it? Do I want to hold it? Do I want to liquidate it? If you don't understand that, then you might be looking at premiums and going, well, I don't want to pay those premiums. So you stay in garbage that you should not be staying in, right? Or you say, well, I'm going to buy this because it's going up, but you can only convert that into dollars that are losing all of their purchasing power value. So in order to really be able to make well-educated and grounded choices, because here's a guarantee that I can give you. At some point, all assets, all instruments go to their fundamental value. And that fundamental value, I did a video maybe 5 or 6 or 7 months ago on the difference between intrinsic value, which is Wall Street's value, and fundamental value, which is where everything will go to at some point. They can hide it for a long time, but they can't hide it permanently. And so understanding those two pieces are critically important. Maybe it's worth the premium, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's worth the taxable event, maybe it's not. But how can you make an educated choice on anything if you do not know its true value and where it's going? Then you're just letting market forces and Wall Street dictate what you think. And that is not going to serve you well, because their job is to transfer the risk and leave you holding that hot potato bag. And we've seen it over and over and over and over and over again. They don't work for you. They work for the elites. But you do want a variety of sizes in both gold and silver, so that if you need to pay a property tax, are you paying it with a whole ounce? Nope. You might only need to pay it with a 1/20 of an ounce. So if it isn't, at least something you can break down into different sizes. And Determined Tierra 4484. Mrs. Lynette, I have bought hundreds of dollars of 92.5 stamped jewelry from a Goodwill to find out that half of it is silver plated. Can I sell silver plated and how do I avoid from buying silver plated? Unless you were buying some forgery, most like this stuff is actually marked sterling. And if you're looking at silver, you can buy a book that will tell you what the well, you don't even need to buy the book. You can do it online. If you have your phone and there's an app that can identify things and tell you, so make sure that you have that app on your phone. And then when you're out and you're looking at something that may or may not be silver, take a picture of it and they'll let you know, because sterling silver, it's so inexpensive that I'm not sure, but that you misread it, okay? Because 92.5% pure, that's 925 silver. So, yeah, get the app on your phone so that you have it. And if you're looking at a piece, take a picture of the marking, and then that should tell you if it's real or not. Also, gold and silver are non-magnetic. So if you have, I don't know if I have one in here, but get yourself a nice strong magnet and keep it in your purse. And so if you're looking at something, see if the magnet is attracted to it or not. So that's another way that you can easily tell. But yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. Or just buy things that are marked sterling as well. I mean, I have both, to be honest with you. So I'm thinking on the plated stuff that you misread the mark. And that having that app would fix that. And having that magnet would also probably fix that. And Chasing Sleep says, how many ounces of gold and silver should we have? Well, it depends. First of all, you can't have too much, okay? But again, what we do in the strategy is we drill down into how you spend your money, how you sustain your standard of living, whether that's paying your property taxes, or it is going to the store, or it's going out for dinner, or whatever that is. The goal is not to change your standard of living. The goal is to define it. And then once we define how much that costs you on an annual basis, then we take that out, we extrapolate that out to however long you are comfortable with. I like 10 years because this is a global issue and it's going to take a minute to work through. It just is. And any of the barterable gold or silver that I have on the other side of this mess, well, I'll probably either save it for gifts or I could convert some of it into the new currency. So you can't really have too much. But that's how we know how much gold do you need? How much silver do you need? In fact, I think I did a video on that defines that a little bit more. Maybe we can pull that and put the link in so people can go in and look at that. But that's what we're sitting there defining. Maybe you're sitting in a 403B or a 401k that you cannot touch. Well, that's a lot of fiat money wealth. We need to be able to protect that. Maybe you're sitting on a lot of fixed rate debt, like a mortgage or a car loan, or get your student loans, get it, whatever debt you have, get it into fixed rate. That would be a recommendation. This would be a great time to do that, by the way. But how much debt are you carrying? We want to be able to pay that off. So, all of these strategies are customized. They're the same basic strategy at the foundation, like you're executing exactly the same strategy that I am, but I have my goals. Your goals may be different. I have my circumstances. Your circumstances may be different. So we've got to take that into account. That's why it can never go one size fits all, because it doesn't. It also has to be done to your level of comfort. So the more we know, the better help we can be in supporting that. And this is not just a one-time, fits all. This is an ongoing relationship. And we intend to help execute this strategy, not just even when we get to the other side of that, but beyond that, because you're always going to need to know really what's going on so that you can always make educated choices that puts your best interest first, regardless of what anybody says. So we are doing a lot to future-proof this company and help you execute the entire strategy. I'm really actually very excited about that because I really am getting to live out the reason why I'm on this planet. What a gift that is that you've given me. Thank you so much. Seriously. Thank you so much. That is a huge gift. So Capram MD1 asks, I have to tell you, Kenneth Mraz is an asset to you, a gentleman, knowledgeable, and he can be on my team anytime. His advice is priceless, and that's from Dr. Patrick. Thank you very, very much. You know, I meet with everybody on a weekly basis. We get together, but even beyond that, you've seen his work here, and he's not the only one. I'm so incredibly proud of the team, and seriously, I have to give Jacqueline Dawson, the president of the company. I mean, she's the team builder. She really is. She's done a phenomenal job. She's been with me for many, many years. I rely on her and trust her, and she has done an incredible job, not just in building the team, but also developing them. So we work together, but I got to give her credit for all the hiring. I really do. She does an amazing job, and I'm so glad that you're happy. And I'm sure that because I hear this all the time too, that all of the different consultants, thank you very much, they're fabulous. They really are. These strategy specialists, they all care. And it's not just the strategy specialists, all the assistants care. Everybody at Zang Enterprises actually wants to make a positive difference in this world. What a great gift that is to everybody. What a great gift. So thank you for letting me know. I really appreciate it. I'm not surprised. And we have, Kenneth and I have something coming up based upon our one-on-one last week that I think you'll be quite entertained. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're working on it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Because, you know, look, everything I talk about, where I live most of my life is in this really crappy, negative space. So you got to lighten up a little bit. That's why I like to surround myself with pretty, because it helps me to stay balanced. And it's why I like walking around my property, because, oh my gosh, all of this is so nasty. But we have choices, and we can make those choices, and we can become as independent and self-sufficient inside a community, and we can take our power back. That gives me so much hope. And in fact, right after the first of the year, I'm doing an educational piece with young entrepreneurs. I'm really excited. I think they're like in their mid-teens. And I'm so excited about doing this. You'll be seeing some of that work as well, because I'm trying to figure out how to communicate at all those levels. I did learn this from CFLA. We did their Christmas party that we sponsored last week, and somebody was quite happy with what they did, and I got. So younger people that are watching that may know what that means, but I think that's a good thing. So it's very fun. We have to be able to communicate and talk and work together. All of the generations, everybody, right? I believe in bringing everybody together, not pulling people apart. And guess what? We don't have to agree 100% on everything, and we can still support each other's rights to do that and make their own educated and their own choices, even if they're not educated. You can still do that. But we believe in education, because how many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? So, and Chucho asks, sell AU to buy property with fixed mortgage or continue to rent and hold gold. Riley is lovely. You see, and she is lovely, and she's been on air many times too. And she really has such a huge heart. I'm just in love with that girl. No. What you will do is if you had a mortgage, then when they do that overnight reset, and like in Venezuela with the first one, you saw spot gold go up over 3,500%. Then you take a little bit of the gold that you're holding, liquidate it, and bam, pay that mortgage off with, frankly, currency, fiat currency that has zero value. Everybody, again, I always have to say this, everybody's got to do what they're comfortable doing. I would not be doing any speculative real estate right now. You do need to have a place to make your last stand. So I'm not suggesting you run out and buy real estate, but I am saying that if you have a mortgage, part of the strategy will be to, boom, pay that off with dollars that have no value in this country, or fiat currencies that have no value. So I'm not telling you to run out and buy real estate. But if you made that choice, again, there is a strategy on how to deal with that. And Jeremy Gould 5752 says, Lynette, do you believe there will be another government shutdown? Good question. And if so, do you anticipate another enormous spending bill to be the result? I think we haven't really fully felt the impact of the first shutdown, and honestly, with how contentious and how divided the government is, it would not surprise me at all to see another government shutdown. I don't know historically if there have ever been two right in a row like this or so close together. And again, I don't think we've fully felt the impact. I mean, there are certainly government employees that have felt that impact, and the businesses in Washington, D.C., or wherever a lot of the cuts came, they have felt the impact. I just don't see these guys cooperating. And so I think that another one in January is quite probable. And will there be another enormous spending bill to be the result? Well, look, a lot of people are losing all of those insurance, the insurance premium support that they were getting. I mean, these are very tough times for most people. And another enormous spending bill. We haven't even seen what they've really done. Modern money theory, let's just print us into oblivion. That'll work. Yeah, we can fix a too much debt problem with even more debt. Duh. No, this is why we see that K-shaped recovery where the top is getting more and more benefit and the bottom. New middle class, nothing seems affordable. House, children, all feel out of reach as pessimism sets in. I would think another government shutdown seals that deal, and let's see what happens with the confidence. Because if they do that, and the confidence level drops below the lowest level that it's been, and it keeps kissing it, it just hasn't done it yet. I could be wrong, but you can mark my words on this one. Once that confidence breaks below the lower bound support, that clock will be ticking to hyperinflation. Will not be a good thing. So another government shutdown could very well usher in that drop below the lowest level ever of confidence. There are guys in the government that's got to know everything and more than I do. Certainly, it's ridiculous. But I don't know that matters. And I can't even say for sure. I mean, I know most politicians have no idea what money is. They just spend willy-nilly because they're spending somebody else's. They're spending our tax dollars. It's not their money. But I gotta believe that they know what I know and more. Some of them. Someone. Anyway. But we'll find out. Yeah, I think the result, if they do that, is going to be that confidence will break below the lower zero bound, and the hyperinflation will begin to become more noticeable. That means rapid inflation. And once that happens, that's going to push that confidence level even worse. Yeah, that's what I think will happen if we get another government shutdown that's of any length of time at all. I wish I didn't have to say that, but I do. So that's how close we could be if they are. That's stupid, which they could be. And this is not any party, right? I am apolitical. Doesn't matter who's in office anywhere. Politicians do not understand money. They don't. Gascon Hart says, hello, Lynette. I love your shows. Thank you very much. Any clue as to who is behind those Asian AI guy videos on YouTube? Those have a great artwork, high quality insights, but are anonymous. Thanks. I am not familiar with the Asian AI guy, but I think I will take a look at him and see what he says. So I have no idea who is behind that. And I don't even know if I would be able to find that out since it's AI, but maybe some people on my team that know this can figure that out. And Neo Theater says, Lynette, hearing about stable coins, I had an epiphany. I realized it was nothing more than a new version of the company store money. Oh, you're absolutely right. That's a great way to put it, too. I asked AI with advanced research features setting it, and it agreed. But you cannot believe everything that AI says because it only gets the data that it gets. So good that you're educating them, but absolutely that makes all the sense in the world. And isn't that really what government fiat is too? You're forced to use it wherever it is that you live. So yeah, sound money, that's global money. I can take these anywhere in the world and convert them into any currency I want. Yeah, very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Very good point. Ghost Collector 2030 asks, did you get a chance to look into Trump Executive Order 14330? No, but put that on the list and I will. I spend a lot of time getting better. You know, I mean, it always takes a minute or two to figure out how you're going to do this. So when you guys bring these to me, now I've gotten to where they go on one place and I just look at them before I even start anything else. So that's good. No, but I will. And I'll bring it next Tuesday. Sandy DePaul 1235 asks, if you have silver eagles, can the government come to your home and take them away from you? Well, the government can do anything they want, but that is not a likely scenario, especially in this country where maybe 1% of the population owns gold and silver, but the government can do anything they want. I just don't think that that's likely with silver eagles or any form of silver. And I do personally own silver eagles. I own a lot of different around the world government silver coins. I own rounds. We have Zang rounds. As you know, I own sterling silver. So I don't think that that is a likely scenario in the U.S. And also it's physical, right? So this is another reason why we have to maintain our privacy, because quite honestly, that's the kind of thing that I like to give when somebody is born. I like to give them like 10 silver dollars. Now that's getting to be quite a nice gift. But when I first started, it wasn't that big of a deal because they were $4.38. So, yeah, that's the beauty part. That's one of the beauty parts of the physical metals is that who's to say? I typically will give gold for a wedding and silver for a birth. That's it. Now, if everything is tokenized, they're going to know who you gave it to. I don't want to go there. I want some level of privacy. Maybe it's my generation, but it's also my control, right? Does that make sense? And Jambobsky asks, hi, Lynette, do we actually lose purchasing power if we do not act accordingly before a reset, as a new currency will be revalued? Hope that makes sense. I'm going to read it again because it's not crystal clear. But do we actually lose purchasing power if we do not act accordingly? So it depends on what acting accordingly is. If you are acting accordingly, that means that you're sitting on a lot of physical gold and silver in your possession. And so no, you do not lose purchasing power. If, however, you stay inside of the fiat money markets, so things like stocks or bonds or mutual funds or ETFs or cash, right? Those are the things that they lose purchasing power no matter what you're doing, because that's the design of them since they're created from corporate debt, right? And when you have debt, you pay interest on the debt. There's your inflation. So no, if you act accordingly by positioning into gold and silver, you do not lose your purchasing power, period. And that has been proven over 4,800 times, period. And PPC Works says, my question, so should I sell my silver at 110? Didn't I answer this already? Maybe it's from, oh, you put it in there twice? Okay. Chris Willis, 7359 asked, is your silver collectible too or only gold? The little bit of collectible silver that I have, I use actually for my grandson because he loses his mind over it. So I have some slabbed Carson City silver, but I would say 99% of my silver is not slabbed. It's not collectible silver. It's just constitutional silver, rounds, like I said, government silver, this kind of silver. So no, I don't do a lot with collectible silver other than particularly for gifts. And Kilted Sasquatch 3693 asks, how can you verify the gold content in gold backs? Yes, they look nice, but I like to be able to verify my stack. Well, you would have to have like a super fine scale, because there's 1,000th of a troy ounce in here. That's actually a really good question. Can we take that question and send it to our Goldback people and get an answer on that? So let me be able to answer that intelligently. I can't really do that, but that's a fabulous question. Thank you for asking it. We will get back to you. I don't know if we can get them this week before Tuesday, but if we can, then I'll have that answer for you next Tuesday. Great question. And Sheila Merlino, 2995 asks, Metro 2334. Okay, please explain, wild money, and when would we be using it, during reset or before reset? I think you're thinking about cash in the wild, which is what the central bank and the IMF named this cash that does not have a chip in it to match whatever the interest rates or the negative rates are doing at the bank. So you would use that as your first line of defense. again, even without that chip in it, it's losing all of its purchasing power value. But it would still have more value than any of the paper money that they would create with the chips in there. So, what did the IMF say? Once we have a digital currency, there are no limitations on how low they can push interest rates. Because if you stop and just think about it logically for a minute, if they have used up all the purchasing power in the currency and they still need a crisis, what do they have to attack? They have to attack your principal. How do they attack your principal? Well, they do it by putting a chip in the currency so that even if you have cash, they don't want to fully get rid of the cash. They want you to volunteer getting rid of the cash. So we'll see what happens, but there may still be cash in the system. If it does not have the chip in it, well, then you're fixed at that $10, right? Whereas if it has the chip in it and they charge you negative rates at the bank and you go to use that cash or you go to redeposit that cash, it will reflect compounded loss of principal. So even though it might be a $10 bill, when you go to use it to, say, buy your cup of coffee, it might only come out at $6 or $3 or what have you in terms of numerical value. If you go to deposit it back in, instead of it being deposited in at $10, it would deposit back in at that $6 or $3 or whatever that is. But if you have cash in the wild that does not have that chip in it, then it will at least maintain its stated value, not its purchasing power value, because that's being inflated away, but its stated value. That's why they want to get rid of the cash, because this creates boundaries. That's why they want to go to the cryptos, because then those boundaries are eliminated. Since right now, you can only go 10.00. Now, they'll go a couple points after that. If you look at the purchasing power, you can see that. They'll go like another 2 digits after that. But with digital currencies, they can go out as far as they want. So then they can continue to rob you, even rob you of your purchasing, not just your purchasing power, but your principal. But it'll be so small that you wouldn't see it, right? It's just like the way they try and keep that inflation rate at 2%, because at 2%, you don't change behavior. You don't ask for more money at work. You still buy those trips and do those other things. That's the goal, to keep you in the system and keep you stupid. That's why I want redeemable gold back in the system, because they won't be able to do that then. But that's your cash in the wild, and I think that's what you were asking. If that's not what you were asking, please let me know. Deb Warner 2978 asks, Lynette, do you think the government will try to falsely manipulate the fundamental values downward to manipulate digital currency upward until our currency is gold backed? Okay, I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to kind of answer it as we go along. Do I think the government will try to falsely manipulate the fundamental values downward? No, because they know that people don't understand fundamental value, and they can't manipulate the fundamental value. What they can manipulate is the market intrinsic value. That's why it's important to know the difference between the two, because they can't control the fundamental value. And in truth, the more of this that they do, the higher in terms of dollars that, or wherever you are in the world, the higher in terms of that fiat currency, that asset, or particularly gold and silver, go. So when I talk about it being worth $40,000, by the time they get the reset, it could be, kind of like what we saw in Venezuela, and it went up 3,500%. That wasn't magic. that was just gold starting to express to its fundamental value. And that's what I know we're going to see again, because that's how they burn off that unpayable debt and repay it 10 trillion Zimbabwe dollars with currency that has absolutely zero value, so they can start anew. So the first one is no, they won't manipulate the fundamental value because that is way beyond their control, way beyond. Intrinsic value, absolutely within their control. Fundamental value, not, which is also why seeing spot gold and spot silver spike like this is telling you that we are actually inside of a structural shift, right? Structural shift. They had control of those fiat markets for a very long time. Now they are losing that control, which makes me quite happy. And they can't manipulate the digital currency upward. They can manipulate, yes, they can put it in, but they can't manipulate the fundamental value, particularly when all you can do is convert them back to this stuff. So they can change the names, they can do all sorts of things, but no, they cannot manipulate the fundamental value one way or the other. They just can't do it. That's why I tell you all the time, sound money is above all central bankers and above all governments. They cannot inflate its value away. They cannot manipulate it. In the paper markets, yep, they can create as much gold and silver as they want. So they can manipulate the intrinsic value, not the fundamental value. We'll be having that link, the piece that I did so you could understand the difference between those two in below. And then if you have more questions about it, of course, I'll be here on Tuesdays. And Jason Luchtel 7974 says, what is your take on hoarding nickels and pre-82 copper cents? The metal and the coins are worth more than the face value of the coin. Absolutely, that's true in both cases. Look at it as copper and nickel are on sale through this. Yes, I would agree with you 100% on that. And it's good that you realize that nickels are nickel. They're not silver, other than World War II nickels, and they had a bit of silver in it because they needed the nickel was more important to the war machine. So I think it's absolutely a great idea to do it. Absolutely 100%. Why not? Why not? Yes. And Voice Crypto says, why don't we ever see you and Peter Schiff collab? Well, I really have a lot of respect for Peter's father. And I've actually never met Peter Schiff in person. If I were asked to sit on a panel with him, I would. I wouldn't say no, because I have a tendency to say yes. So I don't know how else to answer that. Capram MD1 asks, who owns the Bitcoin that I buy? When I buy, who gets my money? Who answers my questions? Who do I call? If I sell it, who will buy it? Are these valid questions? These are all valid questions. And it's really simple. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And by the way, I pulled this up, so I still have to dig deeper into it. But I just came across an article where they're actually going to be DTC or DTCC, which is the Delaware Depository Trust Company, will actually be the legal registered owners of all of this crap, just like they are the legal registered owners of all the stocks and all the bonds and all the ETFs and all the everything. And then what that actually means is you would be labeled on the very bottom, because DTCC is up here, and who owns DTCC? Well, let's see. All of those big same banks, and They get to use your collateral. You're just down here. So yeah, these are very, very valid questions. I just came across that article, after I had done my work. So it's up there. I will be doing a piece on that. Great, great question. But it ain't you that's the legal registered owner of any intangible financial product. Great question. Jen's Peter Bondi, 6405. Hello from Denmark. Oh, hello. I love it when I know where people are watching from, and thank you for getting up so early. We can't borrow money for gold, silver in the banks. Is that a real thing in the U.S.? Not really. The governments do not want you owning gold and silver. And I never really recommend doing it with debt anyway, because you are too susceptible. Gold and silver is savings-based money, and it's labor for labor, right? So it makes a whole lot of sense because I'm trading my labor for someone else's labor at some kind of level. But no, that's not really a real thing here. And I think, was it Denmark? You might be able to answer this question. I mean, I'll go in and look because I grabbed it and slapped it up on a PowerPoint for me to look at when I had a minute. But was it Denmark where home prices went up like 17 or 18% this past year? I'm not exactly sure, but that was a report that I read, so you'll have to forgive me because I did it at a fast glance as I was getting ready for my next thing. But thank you very much for watching from Denmark. I'll have to get there sometime. I've never been to Denmark. And Frederick Hill 2046 asks, hi Lynette, have you heard about the green confiscation concerning silver? Nope, but I'll look at it. But, the challenge with silver and confiscation, I mean, we can account for like 98% of all of the gold that has ever been mined. But we can't do that with silver because it gets used up in industry. And that's really why I think it would be very challenging, or a lot more challenging, to confiscate. Governments can do anything they want, but keep in mind that much as they've tried, they really have never been able to duplicate the exact properties of both gold and silver in a lab. So, I mean, anything is possible. There's no doubt about it. They're probably not going to come in for your flatware and your little sterling trays, but I'll look at it more. I'll look more deeply into the whole silver confiscation issue. Okay. It's great having Jessica here because I know she's putting it on a slide for me. And Chris Willis 7359 asks, Lynette, would you consider doing more interviews with ordinary people who have lived through the currency resets and hyperinflation in their countries, real experiences and tips for surviving through? 100%, Chris. And if you know anybody, that is really the interview that I just did. We did it this morning, and now Mimi is working on it diligently to get it out on Saturday. He's lived through it. And, it's Javier, and he was just there 2 weeks ago. His mom still lives in Venezuela. He's been through all of those currency resets. And his grandmother, his grandmother was born in 1928 when Venezuela was still on the gold and silver standard and one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So the answer is yes. And I've had RPAD on, and maybe we could give RPAD another call. And there are people. So yes, we will do that more. We'll absolutely do that more. It's important for you to know, because so many times people think, well, that can't happen here. Can happen everywhere else, but here we're exceptional. No, it happens everywhere. And nobody is immune, and no country is immune. So yes, thank you. And Michael Porter, 5679. How do you use your physical gold and silver as collateral to get a loan to buy more assets? Well, there are some places and even some banks that will use that as collateral, but why would you want to leverage it? You know, can you really fix a too much debt problem? And I mean, leverage works great on the way up, but it kills you on the way down. So are you going to position into gold and silver and then use that as collateral, which then if you're using it as collateral, who's holding it? You know, your mom might let you hold it, and in which case that could work. But if you're going to a bank or another entity, if you're using that gold and silver as collateral, they're probably going to want to be holding that collateral. And then when the reverse happens and that leverage squeezes you out, then you're giving up your gold and silver. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. However, having said that, you know, you've got to do what you're comfortable with. This is not widespread, but there are definitely places that do that. I know that that's been something that we've discussed in our C-suite, but it's not something that we're keen on because of where we are in this cycle. And why would you jeopardize your holdings? Just keep stacking. Just keep stacking and develop that community around you so that you create that surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. That's the focus, not accumulating other assets and using debt to do it. That's not where we are in this cycle right now. That is not where we are. But you do whatever you're comfortable with. Yes, there are companies that will do that, but we're not one, because we want to get you in the best possible position to grow your wealth and be in a better place after this reset. And Valley Rose 717 asks, would like for you to show specific gravity to check for pure silver. We actually did a video, and maybe we can pull that link as well, that shows you a bunch of different methods for doing that. When I was talking about checking for silver earlier, that's just a quick and easy way. But there's also the ping test. There's a weight test. There's a piece of equipment. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but there's a piece of equipment that will test the weight and the density to make sure that it's what we say it is. You know, also everything that we work with are from certified mint dealers, and they're the ones that guarantee their authenticity and that they are what we say they are. And that's also, those same entities are who we will be selling back to. So they know where that it came from them, and they know that it's going back to them when it's time to exit this strategy. Though having said that, 100% of the time you want a foundation of sound money, 100% of the time. So we do have that video, and it's easy enough. Isn't it easy enough to search our videos? Can they do that easy on our YouTube channel? Mm-hmm. So they're saying yes. And can you tell them, Josh, how they could do that? Because there's been a lot of links. They just have to search it.
But I'm chatting with Mimi, and everything that you mentioned to put in the links, I'm having her include it. So okay. Everything you've referenced will be included in the description.
Okay, excellent. Okay, but you can search it, and you can also go on our website and search the blog as well. So that gives it to you visibly, the video, but it also gives you, I'm pretty sure it gives you a transcript too. And Neo Theater, Lynette, for all intents and purposes, the yen carry trade has ended, right? Yep, because what a carry trade is it's borrowing at a lower interest rate and then investing it in a higher yielding asset, right? And so with what Japan's been going through a deflationary spiral or deflationary phase since the early 90s. And so that was the yen carry trade, is they would borrow yen cheaply, and then Wall Street, whoever, the entities would go out and gamble with it, right? They'd buy stocks, they'd buy higher yielding bonds, whatever, to get that pickup. But since Japan has been raising their interest rates, yes, that yen carry trade is over. I don't think that we've really felt all the ramifications of the ending of it, and I think there's more drama to come, but yeah, it is. And we even had a dollar carry trade when we held interest rates at 0 for 15 years. The dollar carry trade. Yep, that's over too, by the way. So Dawn YB2 UK. Remind me of my mother who passed away. Makes me miss her every time I see you. I tell everybody to buy gold and silver for years now, ever since I saw your podcast. Thank you so much for helping people. And actually, Dawn, what makes me feel even better is if in any way I can bring your mom to you, I'm happy to do that. Because quite honestly, I wish my mom were still here to be going through all of this with me. And she's been gone since 2010, right? And there isn't a day, honestly, there isn't a day that goes by. And I know we're going to make a few rearrangements in what we call the baby's bedroom, which is where her bedroom set is. And I said, okay, we can empty all of the drawers, but this one, which is her drawer where I have like a whole bunch of her nightgowns and things like that. And that may seem silly or whatever, but every now and again I open that drawer. So yeah, if I can bring you those good memories, then that's an honor for me to do that, and I'm glad that I can. And Kindlia, it was such a pleasure meeting you again yesterday. Oh, yes. It was such a pleasure meeting you again yesterday. It is because of your influence that I am becoming a client. Thank you so much. It was great seeing you again, because I know you came and saw me when I was at ITM the first time, and that was a few years ago. You reminded me. And we've already put it out in the garden, so we'll have to make a picture of it and post it on social media. She made me the most beautiful sun catcher out of crystals. Absolutely beautiful, and it's put in the courtyard. So we'll take a picture of it. It was really nice seeing you again. And you have to make arrangements. I think you're working with Brandon. You make arrangements to come and see the farm too. And however we can help you with your homesteading and growing and all of that, very, very happy to. And I know, didn't you tell me that you have moringa? I was supposed to get you seeds, but you got some seeds, and now you have moringa. Which, by the way, you guys, I mean, it doesn't like cold, but if you're in a warmer place, moringa, you could live off of that plant if you needed to. Grows super rapidly. It's a great plant. And Brian Barbie says, where do you get the fiat money guns? Actually, I got them on Amazon. And Frederick Hill 2046. Hi again, Lynette. Great job you are doing for everybody. Thank you so much. Is there a way to quit using fiat money and take more of our power back concerning making the powers that be in line with the Constitution? This is how you do it. Enough people position into gold and silver, join that sound money movement, get that legislation passed in the states, even if it's not perfect. It is a step forward. Educate our politicians on what sound money is. Educate our children, ourselves, our family. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You just keep building those communities. You just keep stacking. And, dime cards, right? I mean, we'll have those. If you're a client, you get the first one free, and then you can buy at our cost, period. We don't want to make any money off of the dime cards. That is not the point of them. But just start sharing the dime cards, and I will continue to create more content because that dime card also comes with a little under 5-minute video. But I will continue to make more content that you have access to, that you can use. Like I said a little bit earlier, I think that this is happening on January 5th. So very quickly, I'm working with, teenagers and helping them learn sound money. So whatever it is that I create for them, you're going to get to see it. And if you want it, then you call and talk to your strategy specialists, and we'll make sure that you have the link so that you can use it, because we've got to, how many times can you be lied to? And this is a quote that I've also used. I know you've heard me say this, but it's really simple. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over time, the truth will seem outrageous and the speaker a raving lunatic. I'm your raving lunatic, but it doesn't change the truth. So I will forever and constantly be trying to create tools that I can give you so that you can, you're the army, right? You're the ones that are out there. I consider myself a warrior, so that's my job. But together we can do it. One person can't do it. If I'm just shouting into the wind and nobody can hear me, it doesn't mean anything. So help me. When you go out and you're delivering those dime cards or talking to people, let me know where your pain is, right? And I will work to figure out what I can give you to overcome that. But, that requires our community. That's you and me working together to make this happen. And that's what we have to do. And Sparty Bill asks, I have gold and silver in an SD IRA. They say it is a vault in Delaware. Do you think it's okay to leave it there? Well, I have a few things about that. Number one, I'm not as worried as it not actually being there as your ability to access that, because the only thing you can do in an IRA at this point is monetary gold. You go to the IRS guidelines, and if you can hold it in an IRA, it is classified as monetary gold. Even though they'll want to tell you, oh, no, this is collectible. No, it's not. So it's easy to confiscate. That's one of my key concerns around an IRA. Second of all, now, all good citizens always pay all taxes that are due. If you are holding your physical gold and silver inside of an IRA, the taxable event occurs when they actually ship the gold and silver to you. So if gold and silver, because when you go to liquidate it, it's at this point, it's not reportable. That's not true in every single case, but it is true with American Eagles, and it's also true with the collectibles. So it's not true in every case, but it's true in a lot that they're not reportable. Now, all good citizens pay all taxes that are due, but it's not somebody else that's dictating that to you. It is your ability to report upon the sales. So you can hold it there. I'm not really worried. I'm not sure that it's segregated. It's probably put in with a whole bunch of other people's, so you can check on that. So I'm not as worried about it being there. Is your ability to access it when you need it, their ability to confiscate if they want to, and their choice to do a one-off tax on your retirement accounts which our government has been talking about for quite some time. Now, a one-off tax means the way it'll be positioned is they're only going to do it once. And so therefore, you don't change any of your behavior. Is that okay with you? Because they can dictate that whole piece. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And Kilted Sasquatch 3693. If you are looking for rarity of materials, then wood is the most rare material in the universe. Since trees are only known to exist on Earth, gold and silver are spread throughout the universe. Okay? So it's one thing to look at rarity, and you're absolutely right. In trees, there's a finite amount. In anything that's physical, there is a finite amount. If there is gold and silver throughout the universe at all of these other planets, there's still a finite amount. Additionally, but it's not necessarily the rarity factor. Why isn't wood the foundation for the monetary system? Because it can burn up. It's destructible, right? Gold is indestructible. So they're both finite, no matter what. Wood is you can burn it. It's destructible. Gold, it is not. It has one value wood has one value in this form. It's got a value in a tree. If you convert that into furniture, it's going to have a different value. If you turn it into a wooden nickel, it's going to have a different value. Whereas with gold and silver in any form, they are monetary at its base. Diamonds, the bigger the diamond is, the more value it has. If you slice that down, it loses its value. With gold, no, look, I have this little 1/20th of an ounce and I have this 1 ounce. So in any form, it maintains its value. Let's see, what else could there be with wood? It has a life cycle. Tree's going to live so long. Gold, indestructible indefinitely. What does it hold into history? Wood would not hold the energy and the labor that it takes to, chop it down. Chop it down. So, when you make a comparison between the two and both are important, and you're absolutely right, there's only so many trees in this world on any planet, but there's also only so much gold and so much silver, and I really couldn't tell you what it is in the universe because that is way above my pay grade, and I do not know that. However, what I do know is gold is the only thing, and they've tried stones, they've tried wheat, they've tried wood, they've tried animals. They have over the last thousands of years, they've tried so many different things as money, but only gold holds all of the properties to be sound money. Well, silver too, right? But that's why gold is the primary currency metal, because it's the only thing that actually has all of the properties required. Silver gets used up, gold does not, so it's a better tool of measure, right? That first piece. So, yeah. That's why. And Michael Roberts 564 asks, "This is such a great show." Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I really am glad that you're enjoying it. I will always do my best to kind of shake things up and keep things interesting. Love you, Lynette. Happy Hanukkah to you and yours, dear woman. You were born for this time to do what you are doing. You are a gift from God for which I am truly grateful. And so are you, and so is every single person out there. And honestly, it is my honor. I just gave me chills. It is my honor. It is my pleasure. How many people out there actually get to do what they know their destiny is? I feel like I am the luckiest woman in the universe, and you're a big reason why. Thank you so much for being here and allowing me to live my purpose. Thank you. And PP Pad He says, hi, Lynette. Should there be initial targets individuals starting out should aspire for in terms of gold and silver? For example, a person from Romania suggests 200 grams per head of gold as insurance. You know, I really, first of all, I think we are the only company that actually has a true strategy based upon currency life cycles, or a true strategy period. If you're talking to somebody, ask them what that strategy is, ask them the exit strategy, and ask them how they determine what you need. Is it your pocketbook that determines it? Okay? Because then they only have one way in. They don't have a way out. They don't understand it. So we really take a look at everything. So just call us. We can help you determine what you need to sustain your standard of living, protect the wealth you've accumulated, and be in a position to take advantage of the opportunities that will present, as well as leave a legacy for your heirs. You know, and any part of that that's not important to you, that's okay, because it's based upon your goals. So no, I can't say, although a lot of people will just throw out a random number, it really is based on who you are. You can't, and how you live your life. You cannot have too much gold or silver. And while I like to talk about and like to be diversified, I'm diversified in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And I do have to have cash because that is our current tool of barter, and there's just no way around that. But I don't own any stocks, I don't own any bonds, and I don't own any cryptos. I just cannot support their lie. I cannot support the evil that they are. And this is where I fortunately lived my life on some level almost my whole life, because I started in banking when I was 15. And Gerald Salente's interview, which is coming out, and you guys are gonna love it. I love him. I truly love him. He actually owns a lot of real estate in Kingston, New York, which is where I'm from. And his offices are in the grocery store right around the corner from the very first bank that I ever worked in. And I would go there and get my cottage cheese and cantaloupes for lunch. So I don't know if I'm ever going back there again. If he asks me, I would go back. But it's hard to say that there's an initial target. Just do what you can and do it in any form, and build that community around you so you can create surety in all of those. You can live without gold and silver, but you can't live without food and water. These aren't absolute necessities. So it's important for you to have that plan. And we are here to support your efforts in all. I know we don't have the other site up yet, but in any single area of the mantra that you need help, we are here to help you. And Canyon River 2441 asks, I'm in your neck of the woods. Do you give lessons on how to be fashionable? Just have fun with it, right? Just have fun with it. You know, there was a time, and if you've been following me for a long time, you have definitely watched this evolution, right? And there was definitely a time where I did not feel comfortable in clothes. If I could get it over me, I was good. But I really I could buy glasses, and I could buy shoes, and I could buy jewelry. I didn't like buying the rest of the stuff so much. So just let your personality shine. That's really what it is. Just don't be afraid and just let your personality shine. I don't know what to say to that, but thank you very much. I also have, and you have to understand too, I have great daughters and they're quite helpful in that regard. Ma, why are you wearing that? Because it fit. No, 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 they do not accept that. So I'm also quite lucky to have very fashionable. In fact, Megan, that you guys have met on the channel and used to work for me, she got her first degree in international relations. Now, I can think of a whole bunch of things that you can do with that. But she sat on the sofa and she was crying, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And this is a good mother moment. I just told them this the other day in the meeting. This is one of my good mother moments. Instead of saying, well, I can think of a dozen things you can do with that degree. I said to her, I said, well, what do you think you might like to do? And she goes, well, I might like fashion design. I'm telling you right now, did she like to shop? 100% she loved to shop, but she never picked up a sewing machine. She never showed any inclination toward art so much. I mean, they like going to galleries and things like that, but it shocked me. But instead of saying what I just said to you, here's my good mother moment. I said, well, if that's what you think you might like to do, then I think you need to pursue that. And then she came back and said, but Dad said, and I haven't been married to him since they were 3. And so I said to her, I said, is he going to pay for it? And she goes, no. I said, then it's none of his business. You go. And so that's what she did. She went back to school for fashion design, ended up going to Paris for couture sewing and all of that, had a bridal salon for about 10 years or so. And so she's quite fashionable. And sometimes she does go shopping with me and she will style me. So you might call her. She might style you too. That's thank you so much. And Awake Now 7-Eleven, what was that gold coin you were holding, Lynette? Well, not quite sure which one you're referring to because I've held a few of them, but these are all pre-33s, so these are all constitutional money. This is a 1 ounce. The date on it is 1889. This is a $10 coin. A 1903. This is a $5 coin. Oh, my 2.5 is probably buried somewhere. This is an 1887. And this is my $1 gold coin that is dated 1853. And then this is a 1 ounce, $20. This is actually a St. Gaudens. These are all Liberties. This is a St. Gaudens, and its date is 1910 from the Philadelphia Mint. So I think that's it for today, but this has been great, and you guys have no idea. I don't care what kind of a mood or how tired or upset about, it doesn't matter. As soon as I sit down to do my live, you guys give me so much energy and so much love. And I just really want you to know how much I truly, truly, truly appreciate you. And honestly, everybody at Zang Enterprises, everybody is there to be of service. And we all work together. We are a very, very tight-knit group. And so I love the fact that you're in our community. If you're local, come see us. We're on Central. We're in dead central Phoenix. You know, if you're working with one of our strategy specialists, you are absolutely welcome that you'd bring them with you and make an appointment. But you are absolutely welcome to come and visit the farm. And then Morgan and Colin and Jeremiah, and I know Jessica's here a lot, but whatever we can do to be of service, that is our job. All of us, we work for you. And with that, I really hope that everybody has very happy and safe holidays. And I just wish the best for everyone. And until next we meet, boy, I know we are making a positive difference in this world. And that's you and us, right? We are. Please be safe out there. Bye-bye.